Welcome to the Mid-Dale Roundup with my man Andy Collier. How you doing this morning, Andy?
I'm doing good, man. Good to be here.
Man, I tell you, you guys got to be feeling really good over here in the Mid-Dale because Collier wins the 17th gold ball. All three teams made it to the state playoffs. The football teams, Midwest City, Dale City, and Collier, like I said, they went to 17 gold ball. Coach Dunn gets his first one as a head coach, coming over from Dale City to Collier. Your son gets his first state championship ring. As a young man that played on the line, I know you got to feel good because I know you got one from Midwest City. Now your son got one. Now you got one. Now you got to work on Anderson getting one.
Paying all his rent, right?
Nothing wrong with that. But Andy, like I said, I know we're going to kind of go over some fall sports, winter sports, and kind of recap of what's going on. I think you guys got a lot of big things going on. With the number one kid in high school basketball, Garrison Anderson, signing with OSU. Mm-hmm. You got some guys that's fixing to sign some football scholarships, with Tayshawn. I think you got the number one running back in the state.
DJ, Midwest City.
Midwest City guy, going to Air Force.
And obviously the Dale City kids right now they're cleaning up with scholarship offers.
Yes,
up there, so.
Coach Jones has done a great job with that program. I know, I tease him a little bit, but I call him Big Game Bob. But he'll get it done eventually. It's good to see. Coach Don gets his done now. Robert will work on his, and Coach Hall still. After last year not making the playoffs and this year making the playoffs and winning district, it just kind of tells you how strong Mid-Dale program is, though. And so, how do you feel about everything that's going on over here in the Mid-Dale?
Well, starting with fall sports, it's been a great year.
Yes, sir.
You start with cross country. We had kids make it on the last day. Succeed, run at a high level. Volleyball, we got better at each of our schools, and Carl Albert ended up playing the state semifinals.
Yes, sir.
And that's a tough sport because you have to beat some good private schools.
Oh yeah.
But as a public school, Carl Albert this year was top notch. Look at softball. We had some big wins from Midwest City and Dale City at times, and then Carl Albert makes it to the state semifinals, gets beat by a good Piedmont team who I expect to move up a class in the next probably year. So that was good. And then football, man, we knew everybody going 5A, we were going to cause some havoc.
Yes.
And it was a good year. Dale City, very talented team. Coach Jones, like you said, does a great job. Yeah. And they had 3 losses this year. 2 of those losses in overtime. And those overtime losses set them up with Carl Albert. And Carl Albert, having to go to Carl Albert's always a tough place to play. But they had a really good year. A lot of kids going to get the opportunity to go play at the next level. Coach Hall and his group, they won a district championship. Coach Hall is now, he's got 2 rings as a coach, and now he is going to be the all-state coach on the west side.
Yes, congratulations, Coach Hall.
He was the district coach of the year, so he had a great year. He's got a young group of kids, a lot of kids. That nucleus coming back. He had kids this year, seniors like D'Angelo Irvin, who is going to be going to Air Force to play quarterback in baseball. And then you have guys like William Broyles that really stepped up this year, and they're going to get he's going to get an opportunity to play at the next level. And then moving over to Carl Albert, one thing I've learned about Carl Albert is they start slow most time, and everybody gets all panicked, from the outside, but from the inside they stay consistent, they work hard, and about halfway through the season you can see the improvement, the constant improvement, and those kids believe. So it's always a tough out, but winning 17 state championships at a place.
6 out of the last 7 years, it's unbelievable. It talks about the tradition you have over there, and it's funny because I had an older daughter that went there.
Yeah.
She cheered, ran track. Now my youngest one is there, and I just tell you, just kind of going to the basketball game the other night, Carl Albert versus Midwest City, and you look at Midwest City's girls, they're very talented.
Good. Yeah.
And then you look at Carl Albert girls, Richie, I'm going to give Richie a shout out, he has those girls playing good ball. I think they're sitting at 7-0 right now. Just won the Duncan tournament. I just tell you right now, man, he has 4 freshmen. I think he has a freshman starting point guard for him, Skylar.
Yeah, Skylar.
Young, great athlete. I just tell you, man, she can go, and I just tell you right now that the future for Colorado basketball is really, really nice. I mean, it's to the point, man, they can go play with anybody in the state.
And not to interrupt, but golly, me and you both have seen a lot of middle school
Yes.
games this year. and so in Colorado, girls and boys,
Yes.
for all the way from 6 on up are good, but so are Midwest City and
Yes,
Del City.
Yes.
This is kind of a hotbed of talent at all three of these schools. And I know we're fixing to get into our winter sports stuff,
Yes, sir.
but I do want people to know the job that the middle school coaches have done at all three sites.
Yes, yes.
All of their fall sports were really impressive. And you could see, kind of the philosophy that they've taken is to be a farm system for the high school programs. And that's only going to make the high schools better. But it all starts with the foundations. And our middle school coaches at all three sites are doing a great job implementing systems that the high schools run.
Getting them ready for high school. So all they have to do is just walk into the blue book is already laid out, so they're ready to go. But like I said, I mean, as you as the AD, man, you have to feel really, really proud of what you have here at Mid-Del because, you talk about the football, but any one of those teams could have won it. Colorado, Del City, or Midwest City.
It's a matchup, especially late in the year.
Yes.
It comes down to matchup, being able to play in weather and conditions and this and that. And at the end of the day, I think that if Del City were to have won, possibly one of those 2 overtime games, Del City and Carl Albert would have played in the finals.
Yes.
I believe that.
Big time. I mean,
and that's where I think we were. And then I also say, the matchup when it comes to weather that Midwest City had with Piedmont was unfair.
It's unfair.
And so it's life. It's what sports is all about. But Piedmont really had the advantage going into that weather game. I think that if that weather's different, that outcome's different. And I do believe, because we saw McAllister up close and personal. If Midwest City wins that, they play McAllister.
Yes.
And I think Midwest City beats McAllister.
And I had that on my bracket. And I did my show to keep it 100. We kind of talked about that. I had Midwest City beating, Piedmont, then going on and playing McAllister in the second round, and then getting beat by McGinnis. Which McGinnis is a team that once they got beat by Colorado, everybody kind of forgot about.
Right.
But then as you looked at, hey, they end up getting beat. And so it just kind of shows you that, you got to go play the game. Like you said, Colorado started off, lost a couple ball games. Everybody's ready to throw them under the bus. They're done.
They're over.
It's over. Hey, that tradition is done. It's over. They're not going to win another state championship. And then, guess what? When you got that many great coaches, with Don and, Corley and Johnson, all those guys has been there for many years, and they know the program and getting the kids right. The quarterback goes down, bringing a backup quarterback. He does his job, keeping them winning, not losing ball games. And then when you got a guy, X-Rob in the backfield that end up being the leading rusher, it just kind of shows you what they have over at Carl Albert, and I don't think that it's going to stop.
Well, and I think there's 3 things, and listen, we have a lot of kids that understand their role, and that's a lucky thing about Mid-Del is our kids understand sports. They understand it's a team game. That starts with the top.
Yes.
These coaches are great. These coaches could go anywhere and coach, and we're lucky to have them. But even with all those, there's 3 names that I say when it comes to fall sports. Xavier Robinson, Carl Albert, tailback. If you break Mike Gaddis's records,
that's big time.
You're really, really good.
You're good.
So, that was one of the most impressive things that I've seen since I've been here. D'Angelo Irwin, quarterback at Midwest City, he's the first Bomber quarterback to start as a freshman.
Not Bill Gundy.
No.
Not Andy Collier.
It was DJ.
Yeah.
And the thing about DJ is he's such a good kid. You don't get the opportunity to go represent the United States Air Force playing quarterback.
Yes, sir.
If you're not a good kid with a good family and a lot of good safety
education.
nets put in place. That's right. But DJ, starting for 4 years, the numbers he put up, people forget he got beat by Bigsby twice in semifinal games. That's impressive. And then another one's Kenigel Thomas over at Del City. He's another kid that started 4 years.
Yeah.
That does not happen.
No.
And this is 4 years at the highest level. So it tells you how good.
Because he played 5A inside, but they didn't come to 6A 5A to this year.
He played both levels. So, those 3 kids are always going to go down as highly decorated kids, along with a lot of different kids. But we are lucky at all 3 sites to have coaches that surround these kids.
Yes, sir.
Tony, the thing about our coaches is they want these kids to be better men and women.
Yep.
than athletes. And I think that's what makes us so special here.
It does. It makes it real special. Like I said, you talk about, three good ADs, and Dunn, Hall, and then
No doubt.
Robert Jones. Well, Coach, let's
get into the winner.
Let's get into the winner. We're going to start with the Bombers, with their girls and boys basketball team. I know the girls is a top-notch. Played last year in 5A, moved back up to 6A this year, girls and boys, which to me, I think if the Bomber girls were in 5A, they got a good chance to go win a gold ball. But it's going to be tough because I tell you, they played a tough game over the weekend against Norman.
Norman's really good.
Really, really good, Coach.
Edmond Memorial and Norman are really good.
And Edmond North.
And Edmond North. But I will tell you this, they scrimmaged Memorial, they played Norman, and they competed.
Yes.
And so that at least gives you a little bit of thought, girls, Midwest City girls-wise, that they do have a chance. And those girls are going to compete. Coach Knight does a great job.
Yes.
Her assistants are top-notch.
Allison's, I'm a big Allison fan. My daughter goes to Allison.
That's right.
Yes.
And she does a great job. Panay does a great job. We are in a good place in girls basketball at Midwest City. And I think that tells a lot about how these coaches work these kids, the consistency, and just the overall kids buying into their program. And I think that what kind of is not what I love is Midwest City's always going to be up and down.
Yeah.
They're going to be 5A last year, 6A this year, and they may be 5A again next year.
Well, Andy, I'm going to ask you that question. You talk about that. Why does that happen, though? Because the other two schools are not going up and down. I know somebody had mentioned to me, I think, hey, Carl Albert's in the same words with Bigsby. Two good powerhouses.
Right.
Carl was a powerhouse of 5A. Bigsby was small 6A, went up to big 6A. Carl Albert, why does it stay? Because I know they can go into 6A too right now and compete and probably win a state championship. Why do they stay at?
So lots of school districts you'll look at it and say, hey, the beauty of some school districts is you're not landlocked and there's opportunity to grow. Mm-hmm. That's actually a benefit for Carl Albert.
Yes.
Carl Albert is landlocked. And so the way that their boundaries are, there's not much growth. If a kid wants to come to Carl Albert, it's going to be tough to find a house.
Yeah.
And so they're always going to consistently be within that level of 10,050 kids all the way to about 1,110 kids. Okay, and as I know those numbers because I've done it for 6 straight years, they're very consistent with that. Del City was always the program that just kind of fluctuated from 5A to 6A. Since COVID happened, COVID really dropped their numbers.
Yes.
And they lost about 250 kids during the COVID. And when that happened, you really can't bring those kids back. A lot of those kids have gone different places and they're not coming back. And because of that, Del City is going to consistently stay in 5A. There's really no room to grow, and they're not going to lose anymore.
Yeah. God
willing, we don't have another, pandemic. Midwest City is the tricky one because they lost some kids during COVID, which took them down to 5A. Since COVID has been, on the downside, they have grown like a weed. I mean, they're getting kids coming back to school that they had lost. Because of that, they fluctuated up to 5A with their ADM. So it's one of those things. The one positive to Midwest City, if the positive is going from 6A to 5A, is this. Places like Piedmont are growing so much.
Fast. Deer Creek,
Piedmont, places like that, they're going to move up before Midwest City because Midwest City still is not going to grow as fast as Piedmont. So I think Midwest City eventually will be in 5A for good. But I think it's going to be probably a 2 to 3 year process of them going up and down.
That's good stuff.
Which does affect these programs. It makes it difficult, just from a scouting purposes to overall talent. It's not that 5A is any different than 6A. 6A, there's just more depth. And Midwest City is a lot of times a 5A program depth-wise playing a 6A schedule.
6A schedule. Well, you talk about, we talk about the boys and girls basketball team. Who are some of the young ladies that stand out for the Lady Bombers this year?
Well, you tell me, because here's the deal. I know that Douglas is one of my favorite players.
Hey, Deanna Douglas, I tell you right now,
and she
man.
played volleyball this year.
Yeah, that's
the
first job. Did a good job. I tell you, and I'm bad, and I called text Allison yesterday, and I tell you that you had a move in Zero. I can't think of her name right off the back. I thought she played a really good game. I mean,
she had 12 points.
You got Washington.
Landon.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay. She played a really good. I tell you. I really excited to see what the Bombers. We talk about them being in 6A, but I really think they can make some noise when it comes playoffs time because right now they're still kind of not. I mean, they're
not
older
just yet.
you know, they don't have a deep bench.
Yes.
And that was the difference between the game the other night between them and Carl Albert. Carl Albert, you know, brought 4 or 5 new girls in. You know, Mill City, you know, got a couple girls that are still kind of banged up, coming back from injury. I think once they get that settled, it's going to be a team. Because you got 2 great bigs. You got Deanna Douglas and you got the young lady, like I said, Zero. Forgive me for not knowing her name. But she came in this year.
Douglas got into foul trouble the other night.
Yes, she did. She got into foul trouble
and
quick.
that death did hurt.
Because
but here's the deal, and she'll be the first to tell you this. She's a physical player.
Yeah, she is.
She's very skilled. She's going to have to learn all year how to play to stay out of foul
trouble.
And I think that's a process. You have to learn that type of. It's not a skill, but it's something that you have to learn mentally.
Because you're going to get sometimes it's a touch. I will say this. I thought the refs did a good job. I think at first it was kind of one-sided fouls, and it evened out at the end of the game. But I'm going to be honest with you. Collier was a better team the other night, Coach. I mean, I'm going to say, you know, just what having, you know, Sutton, you know, Crawford, Jamie's daughter.
And
those girls have played
have played for 3 years.
Yes, and you can just kind of tell. And now you got some of these young freshmen that's you know played 8th grade last year at Collier, now moved up to the high school team. I mean, you have 4 freshmen that came in and played the other night. 4 or 5 freshmen that came in and played the other night. Don't know all their names, but I just tell you the future's bright over there.
And I will say this: 8th grade basketball at Midwest City Middle School.
Yes,
they're very good. In fact, you know, Carl Roberts really good too.
Yeah.
And Dell City has some skill.
Yeah.
You know, both in their 7th and 8th.
I'll tell you, McAllister got they got the little McAllister's sister over there,
they did.
and she can go. She's a 7th grader, and I just tell you, the future's bright for her. Just once people get to see her, that family's really athletic.
Oh gosh! And how good have they been in Mid-Dell?
Yeah.
I mean, they've given us some.
Yes.
They've given us a ring.
Yes.
You know,
that's big time though. But like I said, you know, the boys, I think. Collier boys, I think it'd be, you know, them and Dell City, the 5A state championship. I think those are the 2 top.
Well, that's interesting you say that because, you know, I've been asked by a couple of different media personalities, you know, can anybody beat Tulsa Memorial?
I think they lost a lot. I don't think they have. I tell you right now, Collier's big man. He put on some size. He put on some size from last year. He was a little skinnier guy. This year he got a little bit muscles. I tell you right now, Collier starts 3 kids that's over 6'4".
I think that you talk about the difference in all 3 of our programs. Dell City, the length that they have is like a small college team. Now they lost Terry McMorris, one of their better players, transferred to Douglas. Kind of surprised us.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, you know, and it's funny that, you know, he transferred, and I know Santa Fe's one of their better players transferred to Douglas. And you know, there's a picture of them all sitting on the couch, and then they go play in that tournament in the Norman Invitational, and they don't win it.
Well, Terry's good.
Yeah, he's good.
He was always, you know, he was a kid that had been around the program for a long time. He was kind of the glue. He had played for multiple years. Taking him out of the equation, they're not quite as long. It puts more focus probably on Brandon Garrison needed to score now. And I think at the end of the year, those guys are going to be gelling like they should.
If you watched that game the other night with them and PC North, it went back and forth. You know, Foreman, you know, coming out of football, he's not in great basketball shape. A lot of shots he had open, he didn't hit. You know, 2 weeks from now, he's going to knock those threes down.
No doubt.
It's going to make a big difference. You know, Dede, you know, just a great athlete, played QB for Dell City. I think once you kind of get him in basketball shape, I think Dell City's going to be fine. I think Garrison's got to take a bigger role because Terry's not here.
Right. He's
got to take that bigger role, and that's why I said Carl Albert and Dell City boys basketball matchup great. I mean, you're looking at it's like the same team. I mean, just with different uniforms on. I mean, they both got 6'9" guys, 6'8", however big the young man is at Carl Albert. But I just tell you, he's a big guy. Then you got the guy that played football. He's not playing football this year for Carl Albert. He's just a junior. I can't even think of his name. It's number 22. What is his name? It'll come back to me. But him, you know, Quincy. Yeah.
Hopkins.
Yeah, Hopkins. You know, you look at him, good sized kid, he can jump out of a gym. And then Rex's son, I think he's 21.
Yep.
You know, he's a good sized kid too. So
there's a name, I'm telling you, in Mid-Dell. Percy.
Dell City. Percy. What was his?
Del City.
They talked about he played really good the other night in the
He's
tournament.
the
He
key.
did.
He's
He
the
was.
key.
He played really good. Is it Percy John?
He last year was coming. He came on.
No, you're right. Yeah, he had a good game the other
big
night.
shots, and
He
I
did.
think that he's starting to take more of a role of having to create his own shot.
Yes.
And I think that's a key. Midwest City is going to be good.
Yes,
this is the first Midwest City team in a long time that started off 0-4.
Yeah.
And people think that the world is falling to,
No, they're young,
here's the
though.
deal. They're playing freshmen and sophomores, and they're a little small because they are freshmen and sophomores, but those kids have bought in. They work extremely hard, and they're going to be good.
And
you just need to be patient with them.
Yeah, you got Henderson. I think he's kind of the leader of the team.
I think he had 18 the other night.
Yeah, I think he's averaging about 18 a game, and you looking at him, he's just a sophomore, junior.
Yeah.
Now starting. So Corky got a lot of work to do, but a guy that's coached, college basketball, he knows what it takes to get the guys there.
And he's not going to get down.
No,
he understands it's a
and they were in the game the other night against Carl Albert. Carl Albert
didn't they cut it to 7 in the third quarter?
Yeah, just Carl Albert. I'm just telling you, Carl Albert's just deep, and then you got to think. I do like to see James Reed. He's out there playing basketball for Carl Albert,
and he's probably not in shape.
Oh my God, I'm telling you right now,
it's a different shape. Basketball and football shape are way different.
Andy, the guy's he's a man child. He's kind of like Larry Johnson back in the day. He took a ball, he grabbed it. That kid, whoever he hit, that kid's chest is still hurting today. So that's like I said, Carl Albert got a good chance to win it. But being back on the Bombers, like I said, the boys team, the young, the girls, I think Coach Malloy will do a great job. A good job getting them where they Coach Knight
and kind of going now to Coach Webb over at Del City.
Yes.
They've started off strong.
Yeah.
And that's a program, once again, when they were in 5A, she took them to the state tournament, beat an El Reno team that was really good to get to the state tournament. Yes. It was a great game.
They ended up playing for the state championship.
Now that Coach Webb is back into 5A, last year they had success. They were a game away from going to the state tournament. They bring back a ton nucleus-wise. And Mariah does a great job. Mariah was a great basketball player here in Mid-Del for Midwest City, played at K-State. And we were lucky to get her back.
Yes.
And she went across Center Road, a place that she wasn't used to, and she has got those girls, she's got them playing good. Yeah. They will be a tough out this year in 5A.
I tell you, I saw her at the middle school game, and I love to see when the coach, I know I've seen Coach Richie's at some of the middle school games, and it's good to see some of those coaches come down and watch the middle school because that is your future.
Right.
You need to know what you have, and I think those girls like that. It's funny. My daughter said something the other day, Coach Rich at the game, she said, when they got here, I started doing bad. I said, it's okay, babe. You know what I'm saying? It's part of life. It's like with your son, Anderson, in basketball and football. These kids, at this young age, they look up to these older guys. And so it's when they get their chance to get their opportunity to play at the high school, it's so fun. But I tell you right now, with Midwest City Wrestling, you have to be tickled because back in the 90s, man, they were a powerhouse. It was them and Choctaw back in the day going at it, for dual and state championship. But I know you bring a coach over, R.J. Walker, his first year.
Well, as you can see, the smile on my face. As a Bomber, and when I first got this job, that was one of the biggest questions: is what are we going to do to get Midwest City back to where it used to be? And that's not a shot at our old coach.
No.
Here's the deal: kids weren't going out.
No.
And if you don't have kids, you don't have a squad. You're not going to win very many duels. And back in the day, it is almost impossible to recreate what Midwest City had back in the day, wrestling wise. I mean, they were winning national titles. And that's going to be tough to ever bring back. But Coach Walker has done a great job in a quick amount of time.
Yes,
he's got a squad. He's got numbers that are full. He's been able to. And one of the things that I've noticed about him is, you will see him at practices at football, and different practices of watching other athletes because he knows and understands we're going to almost take a village to raise one of these athletes, and they're going to have to play multiple sports, and so he's not afraid to beat down the halls. He's not afraid to go to other sports and get people, and right now that shows. They're 2-2 on the season in dual, and 2-2 is 500, but that's good. That's good.
No, that's good.
They've gone to tournaments. They've had kids place. Coach Cade right now is building a female wrestling program over there.
Oh, that's good.
And we've got a couple of girls that have a chance to go far in the state tournament. So, it's very exciting to see Midwest City Wrestling
Yeah.
get
Get back on the map.
And then you go over to Del City, and we got a new coach, Coach Schaller, and Jamie does a great job. He's been at Del City. He knows Del City. He knows the landscape. He knows the alumni, and they're 2-2 too. They had a great dual win against Shawnee last week, and he's got a full squad out there now, and so I'm truly excited about that. He's got alumni night coming up, and I know alumni are pretty excited about what he's doing. And then girl program-wise, they're in great shape. I think they have a chance to really make some noise in February with girls wrestling.
Yes.
And that's Coach Childers that's doing that. He's a guy that's been around. He's been a head wrestling coach for many programs. He's doing a great job. And then you go over to Carl Albert, and Carl Albert's got a chance to.
They're going to make some noise.
Yeah, they are.
I'm going to tell you right now, Andy, that program in 5A, everybody's always talked about Collinsville, but I think Carl Albert has a chance, what Coach Hodges and Coach Miller's done with that program in the last, 4 to 5 years. It's turned around big time. They will have, I know they had the Gover kid that's plays.
They've got multiple states
runner-ups
coming back. And last year, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were top 5 finish.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about it, though, he's Coach of the Year.
NFHS Coach of the Year.
And so that's big time, I've had a chance. My son has wrestled and worked with Coach Hodges. Coach Hodges is a great guy. He also plays the instrument, too. So, but I tell you, he's tough. I mean, don't mess with him. I always tell people don't mess with wrestlers. But I got to give it up to him and Coach Miller, though, for what they're doing with the Collier program.
Last week at a tournament, I think it was the PCO tournament, they started the weekend off with 41 of 47 matches they had won.
There you go.
And that tells you kind of where they're at. Going to dual state would be impressive. I think they can make even more.
No, they're going to make some noise. I think Collinsville is down. I haven't looked at the rankings. We'll start going into Keep It 100.
They're right there with 4.
And that just tells you right there. That's big time. If you'd looked at Carl Albert, 10, 12 years ago, they wasn't right there. And he's built that program, and like I said, Kevin Miller, is right there being one of his assistants. It's helped a lot. So it just tells you they're working hard in the room and getting the guys in great shape and physically. Wrestling's it's not all about, it's a tough sport. I tell people all the time, man, wrestling's one of those sports, man, you gotta love it because it's nothing fun about it.
Right.
I mean, you get beat, you can't blame nobody.
Right.
You got to eat right. You ain't eat right. You're overweight. You're hungry.
It's a discipline sport.
It is. It's tough. And then you're grumpy all the time. You're probably grumpy 99% of the time.
You're hungry.
Because you're hungry. You need the Snickers. There you go. But I just tell you though, but those guys have done a great job with that program, and they're going to continue doing a great job. And so you'll see Carl Albert, maybe have 4 or 5 guys. And I tell you right now, to win a wrestling state championship, it comes down. You can have 2 or 3 guys win state. But your backside guys, if they come in and do the things, they can get some points for you. So I just tell you right there, the wrestling program and the swim program. You got to talk about the swim program over there, Carl Albert.
Hey, Middale Swim is, we're improving numbers from the Midwest City and Del City side. We've got kids that are very talented at those 2 schools. Carl Albert's got the majority of our numbers, but right now our boys and girls programs are one of the top 3 programs, no matter what class it is. I think that we went last week and, turn around and go to a swim meet, and it seems like we're winning every one of them. We swam against Jinx and Edmond North a couple of weeks ago. Those are considered 2 of maybe the best programs in the state, and we're right there. So swim, I'm hoping for a 3rd state championship this year.
That's big.
It's a program that, here's the most impressive thing, is they do a lot of that with less resources. A lot of these kids don't even get to practice in a swimming pool because it's hard to find a swimming pool. But they're doing everything cardio-wise, weight-wise to keep them in shape to be able to, when they get in that pool for competition, they're in top-notch shape. And they're doing that at 4:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it tells you the dedication that those kids and those coaches have.
It's a lot of work. Well, Andy, let's take a quick break real quick, and we'll finish this off after one of our sponsors, and we'll be
At
right
Ortho
back.
Central, we're committed to making your life better. Whether it's getting you back to the sport you love, chasing after grandkids, or easing chronic pain. With locations in Norman, Midwest City, and Newcastle. Ortho Central, we're part of your team.
Welcome back to Middale Roundup, Winter Roundup, with my man Andy Collier. Well, Andy, like I said, we're sitting here talking about, what's going on at Collier in the wrestling program. But, one person we got to mention that's done a great job, and I know he's looking for another state championship, and I know we kind of bounced a little bit. But we got to talk about man Lenny Hatchett over at Dell City, he loses a top player like we talked about Terry. So, you got to think about Andy being in his shoes. You think you got this young man that's going to be here, and then, a week or two in the school, you end up losing him. He's been practicing with you, then he ended up leaving. So I got to tell you, and I know Lenny's work is cut out, but he's one of the greatest coaches here in the state of Oklahoma. Well-dressed coach, too. I got to give that to Mr. Hatchett.
Sharp-dressed man.
Sharp-dressed man. But like I said, I think Lenny does a good job. He's been over at, Dell City for a few years now. He's got a state championship, played for it last year. He will be a contender. Like I know we kind of talked earlier that, Dell City and Collier are the two favorites. You talk about Edmond Memorial. I think Edmond Memorial won. But I tell you, there's some teams that you got to watch out.
Tulsa Memorial.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Thinking 6A, Tulsa Memorial. But I think Southeast, and I know Lenny is taking a loss already this year.
Southeast pretty good.
Yeah, they are. They got some good players, and I just tell you, but I think Lenny will get that team, lined up and ready to go. I know you get to know Mr. Hatchett pretty well. What's your words on Lenny?
Lenny's one of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, he anywhere he's been, he's had success. He's a Mid-Dale grad.
Yes,
went to Carl Albert High School. He's been mentored by a lot of great coaches.
Yes.
Mid-Dale coaches. And, the one thing about Lenny is Lenny understood when he got here, there was no selfishness. A lot of times coaches, a lot of times professionals, there can be a little bit of insecurity. Lenny has none of that. And so one of the first things he did was he brought in Tommy Griffin.
Yes.
And Tommy is his right-hand man, and now he's got Tondrell, another successful coach. I think out of all three of those guys, we don't have enough fingers for the amount of rings they have. But what that does is he's able to bring those guys in. Those guys know their role, and Lenny's okay with that.
Yes, sir.
Lenny leads those guys, and I think that's one of the top, not only teams in the state, top coaches in the state. And but Lenny, I can't say enough good things about him. He consistently, one thing that he's done that I don't think people give him enough credit for, he's taught Dell City how to become more of a defensive-oriented basketball team.
Yes, not just to get up and down.
No, and we talk about that in sports like football, even in sports like baseball. When it comes to big games at the end of the year, you better find ways to generate runs because pitching is big, and that doesn't mean you're going to hit home runs. You may have to play small ball to win.
Yeah.
In football, we know weather's going to do some different things, so you better be able to run the ball.
Yes.
And stop the run because you never know what the wind or the weather's going to be. In basketball, in big games towards March, shots don't fall all the time.
Yes.
Because kids are nervous and things change. But the one thing that travels and the one thing that always will consistently stay the same is defense.
Defense.
And so if you play defense in March, you're going to be right there. And that's one thing that all three of our coaches do. They are man-to-man. They'll sprinkle in some zone at times. But they're going to teach kids, and kids are going to understand what help defense is and what defense is, because they know at the end of the year, if they play good, sound defense, they're going to be in every game no matter what,
sir.
Even on the last day.
Yeah. No, you talk about, Lenny, but, it's coaching staff. But I think Coach Price does a great job with his coaching staff, too. I mean, I know you had a chance to watch him coach the other night, man. I think he's more entertaining watching him than watching the team because I tell you, He's coaching, man. He is. I mean, he might as well be the sixth man on the floor because he's on the floor with him. But I tell you, got a chance to kind of watch him the other night, and he's involved. I mean, he's coaching all the time. He's telling the guys, hey, man, you should have been back door. You should have been here for the block out. And I think that's what coaching is all about. I think sometimes coaches think the kids are going to know. You still got to tell them what's going on. I think he does a great job, and I think he has both his sons on the staff with him.
And think about that. Before I get there, we were talking about Lenny, and then I told you about Mariah.
Yes.
And what she has. So you look at where Dell City basketball is, girls and boys, it doesn't get much better than that. But then you go over to Carl Albert, and as you said, Jay Price is, he'll get mad if I say this wrong. He's got 3 rings, or at least got 2, looking for 3. And so Jay Price is a guy that he's got a great staff around him. He preaches defense.
Yes.
He knows that not every year they're going to be the most talented. So what they're going to do is they're going to make sure they're fundamentally sound. And they're going to know, cerebral part of the game. They're going to understand it. He's got a good staff. A couple of his kids as well as Coach Cam, which we know Coach Cam
Yeah.
in Middale. Just really good staff there too. And then Coach Ritchie.
Yeah.
Coach Ritchie, you know, he's sitting there. He had a great year last year.
Yeah.
I know it was, you know, for him, he felt like they should have been better. They stayed number 1 all year, and they get upset in the first round. But once again, we talked about that earlier. All those kids are back. Maybe they learned something from that. His staff, he's put together a staff that's really good as well.
Yes, really good staff.
So, you know, those two schools, and then move your way over to Midwest City. And we talked about Coach Knight, you know, Coach McFeeters. We've talked about Finney Webster.
Yeah.
They do an unbelievable job. Megan's got college coaching experience.
Yes.
She was a college ball player as well. Then you move to Corky, and you know, Coach Muddy himself, they do an unbelievable job. One thing about Corky is he brings an expertise when it comes to how to handle the kids.
Yes.
And I think that is one thing people don't understand. That's why I said when you start out 0-4, just be patient.
Be patient.
You'll be fine. He coached at Rutgers. He was a guy that had to develop kids, but at the same time, when you're recruiting at that level, you have to get to know all kinds of different kids and their personalities.
Everybody has a different personality.
And so that's what Corky is so good at, and his staff. So when you bring up coaches, I've got 6 coaches plus all of their assistants that I would put over anybody in the state. And that's not just because I'm the AD. That's because I really feel like that. There's a lot of rings, a lot of success, a lot of games won when it comes to all of those combined. And Tony, I'm not going to lie, that's pretty lucky.
Well, Andy, you know, you talk about being an AD. I have to ask you this question before we close up. What's it like being the AD? Because at the time, you are AD and you are a father with 2 kids that, you know, do play, you know, middle school ball and high school ball. And you know, you give so much to Middale schools, all 3 of them. But, you know, what's it like? Because I know it has to be tough at times, man, you know, trying to be father, AD, and be positive to all the other schools. And, you know, if you're not at Midwest City, they're mad. If you're not at Del City, they could be upset. But at the end of the day, you're still a father. But I know you love all 3 of these schools. And
I grew up here just like you. And, you know, I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of black and gold blood in my body.
It is
as well
tough.
as my wife's.
Yes.
And, you know, we grew up here. Midwest City was so good to us to a point where this school district's the reason why I got into the profession. Mm-hmm. And when I came back here as an AD, obviously I went to school at Midwest City. When I came back, I was a principal on the Del City side.
Yeah, you was at Kerr.
And I loved it.
Yeah, you did a great job over there with
I
those
absolutely loved it. Spent some time there, got to know people, got to know some of these kids that are having success. And honestly, that was one of the biggest blessings that ever happened to me in my life. And then living, you know, in eastern Oklahoma County, the further east, my kids go to Carl Albert. That's where their friends go. And so I say I'm a little unique in my position because I've got a little bit of each side.
Yes, sir.
But you ask the question, as the older I get, the more that I realize, and I hope that my coaches realize this, because this is the most important thing. We're not going to ever be good in our profession teaching kids how to become grown men and grown women if we're not ourselves acting the way we should. And what I mean by that is we all have faults, but being a dad and a husband or a wife are the most important thing.
Yes, sir.
Our kids are going to learn a lot by seeing us. And I think that is one thing that I've learned over the past few months with my kids involved in athletics is I'm not really teaching my coaches or these kids, you know, what's right and what's wrong if I'm not making sure that I'm a dad first.
You got to be a dad.
And so because of that, I think it's really helped me out. And I've got a great boss. And she's told me you're going to be a dad first.
Yes.
So, you know, does it upset people? I'm sure that there's going to always be people that don't see the way I see, and that's okay. I signed up for this job.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I know this. I know my kids will look at me someday and say that, Dad, you read our stuff.
Is it?
And that's what's most important to me.
And you know.
But it is. Going back to the AD stuff, when you're the AD in Middale and every program has some type of a success, it's a pretty good gig.
Pretty good gig.
I like to win. You know that.
No, it's not wrong with that.
And, you know, I think that at the end of the day, the goal is always to win. But the mission is also always to build winning people.
Yes.
And that starts with K through 12 as well as the adults that are around them.
The right ways.
Anyways, that's kind of my philosophy on the athletic side.
I mean, I tell you, I think you do a great job at it. It's a hard job to juggle, 3 schools. I mean, and it might be a little bit easier if all of them's in, one's in. Your job would be great if one's 5A, one's 4A,
Let's
one's
just
6A.
combine them. How about we just
Well,
combine them?
I'll tell you right now, people don't want that. I'm telling you right now, Jinx, Bigsby, Owasso, you wouldn't want no part of that because I'm just telling you right now, you talk about the great coaches, the great players, that each year that they having kids sign and play D1. And I'm not knocking no one, but I'm gonna say the kids that come out of Mid-Del, if you hear about them, they're doing big things at the next level. I mean, they're not red shirt. They're not just sitting on the bench. You're not playing behind somebody. They're doing big things at the next level.
And once again, I appreciate that because, we take pride in that. But once again, I'm going to say this. Our motto here is, yes, the goal is to win. But the purpose, the mission is to build winners.
Yes.
And so when they leave here, very few are going to ever make it to the NFL. Now, I think we're staring at a defensive tackle and a defensive end in Mid-Del that one played at Midwest City, one played at Del City.
Yeah.
And they're fixing to make some money. Yeah. So we're lucky. we got a catcher from Carl Albert that's the best catcher in the world.
Best catcher.
So we do have people that have made it, and those percentages are crazy.
Yes. I mean, AJ Hinch.
Hinch is managing a team right now. You look at the percentage of players in the NFL, we may have 4 or 5. That's probably more than most anywhere in the country.
I mean, Matt Kemp made a bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean, and so we're lucky with that. But at the end of the day, the majority of our kids are going to be professionals in something else. And so our goal is to make sure that they've given the life tools.
And they're ready. They're ready for the real world.
Yeah.
That's it. Couldn't say it better, But I tell you, real quick, we're going to give a couple of Bomber alumni a shout out, over at Washington. Is it the Warriors?
Warriors.
Yeah. John Hancock.
Head principal at Washington.
Yes, sir. And then Chris Reynolds.
Chris Reynolds is the
superintendent. And then Miss Kathy Dunn.
Yeah. All 3 former Mid-Del employees.
But they brought that magic over there, though.
I mean,
it was DC, CA, whatever it is. They brought a little bit of magic over there. But
it is cool. It's very cool to see other Mid-Del people succeed
and do big things.
So it's really cool.
It's a really big thing. But Andy, before we close this up, is there anything you want to? You got anything to say?
No, I want to give a shout out because we talk a lot about middle school and high school stuff.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about just real quick about elementary.
Yes, sir.
Coach McMullen last year worked with Sheldon Williams, another one of our talented alumni, who is in the Duke Hall of Fame, played multiple 10 years, I think, in the NBA. But Sheldon, he gives back, and one of the things he set up here with the help of Coach McMullen is through his foundation,
yes, sir,
a Midwest City, and at the time it was just for boys elementary for the Midwest City side, a basketball league because AAU basketball costs a lot of money, and some of these kids don't get to play. So we wanted to help some of these kids that didn't get the opportunity to play. Well, it was big, and so this year we've made it into a boys and a girls, and this week is their tournament, their championship tournament.
Okay.
Our numbers are in the 200s.
That's good.
So we've got elementary kids. I'm thinking
you get an opportunity to play.
Oh gosh, yes, and I think that it's going to eventually grow into the other 2 sides as well. So I do want to give it up to those elementary kids that have been working hard.
Yes, sir.
Coach McMullen and Coach Knight who spend weekends up here making sure those kids get an opportunity, and alumni like Sheldon Williams for making it possible.
That's what it's all about, is giving back, and giving an opportunity for some of those young men and women that don't have the money to play or have the
some
shoes.
Some of them are good.
Yes, and like I said, you might find your next
You're
superstar.
You're going to find some superstars, yeah.
And that, because they can't go play U ball, and you don't have elementary school ball no more, so they have to wait till they get to middle school. But I tell you right now, with all the middle school and the high schools, what you got going right now for the next years to come, I mean, it's outstanding with some of the kids you got coming up. This show with you.
I look forward to doing this in the spring.
And I tell you,
I'll give you a little spring peek. We're going to be good.
Yes.
There's a lot of spring sports that we're going to be on top. And I think that, next time we talk, maybe we can talk a little bit about some OSSA policies, because I think some of them might be changing.
Yeah, real quick, I will ask you, though, because somebody asked me, and, having you here and you can see it, everybody can see it live. What is the deal with the transfer? Because I know people's like, well, we're going to transfer in this school. What is it? Is it open? Can anybody just
We get
because
this-
don't you gotta get? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna keep it 100. I know it ain't the 100 show, but I'm telling you right now, Miss Goggins is not going to just let anybody
No.
in the car library.
And none of our
And-
principals will.
and-
We do a really good in-depth search of who wants to get into our schools and making sure that, it's not just about athletics. It's about attendance. It's about behavior.
Yes.
And it's also about grades. And that's really, you're never going to be a good athlete if you don't have the other.
Yes.
And so they do a good job looking into that. When you ask what the transfer policy is, last year there was a legislation piece that came into
Yes.
play, and that was open transfer. Kind of. It is where you can go anywhere, no matter where you live, but there's got to be space. And as we've already talked about our Middle schools, we're really kind of
Tight.
locked out.
Yeah.
And so there's going to have to be openings, and not only is it space, but it's also staffing. We're staffed for a certain amount.
Yes.
So we can't grow a whole lot. We, however, eventually will have some spots open here and there, and so kids will come, put in for a transfer, and get in. If you physically move into our district,
You can go.
you're there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So that's kind of what it is. I think the misunderstanding, though, is this. OSSA policy is not the same as the legislation piece.
Yes.
If you establish eligibility as freshmen somewhere, you're going to either need a hardship or you're going to need to physically move into that district to be eligible to play. We do get a lot of kids that move in and say, well, the law says I got one free move. Well, yeah, one free move to go to school.
Yeah.
That's not one free move to play athletics. You have to be eligible. And
play.
that's the one thing our 3 high school ADs do a good job of. They do paperwork on these kids. They make sure anybody that comes is legal because
you have to.
we're not going to put that on the line.
Well, the deal is you don't want to go undefeated, and you find out that Joe Blow didn't live
No.
in the neighborhood, and guess what? Every game is
Yeah.
forfeit. So yeah.
And you see that sometimes.
Yes, you do.
So we want to make sure we're on the up and up. But the transfer piece it's going to evolve each and every year. And so we will be proactive in Middale instead of reactive. But I think that, things like this will allow me to get some stuff out in
there?
the open.
Yes.
So people understand, because the last thing I would ever want to do is affect a kid's eligibility.
No.
I would never want a kid to even try to come to Middale if it's going to hurt them.
It's going to hurt them.
And so I think being able to communicate with that to parents and
gonna educate
then
them.
learn the rules, will help kids. And I'm not a big transfer guy all the time.
No.
I look at the portal that we have in college football and this
I mean,
and that.
it's man.
And it I understand there's sometimes a need for a transfer, but I do think sometimes kids need to understand
You
that
can't.
it's a growth
yeah,
process, and just because
can't go
one thing-
bounce because
no, I mean
you
fighting
gotta
through
compete.
adversity
Yeah.
is a big deal, and that's one of the things that teaches people how to be better human beings
Well,
is learning how to fight through adversity.
I think a lot of times as parents we get caught up thinking, oh, my baby, or he's not starting, or not that. You got to wait your turn. I didn't start from Middle City to I played a lot as a junior, my senior year, and we were ranked number 1 in the nation. But same thing with you. You had to wait
Yeah.
behind somebody to play QB.
I think it made me a better person.
It made you a better person. And it's going to make you a better person. It's going to teach your kids to be a better person. But Andy, like I said, I really appreciate us doing this show. The Middale Roundup, man, I think it was a great show. Like I said, we'll look for doing it in the spring. And folks, you guys are looking at a great AD. One of the
Appreciate
best,
it, man.
one of the best in the business, man. I tell you, man, he got a tough job. I know he looks pretty and he walks around with this nice little vest, but I tell you right now, man, it's a tough job. But like I said, thank you for watching Middale Roundup. Let's see you next time.